Hello, hello, and welcome to Making Sales Social Live. I'm Bryn Tillman, and I am here by myself today to talk about the power of social proximity. So, what is social proximity? Well, when you think about regular proximity, it's the people that are around you, right? It's how we're connected. Well, social proximity is how are you connected on social, and we're going to talk about it on LinkedIn primarily. Let's talk about the importance of this, right? Especially if we're in a sales role. Often we are out prospecting every single day. We're making calls, we're going to networking meetings, we're meeting with centers of influence and referral partners, and we're out there net new all the time. But we're ignoring our social network mostly. So let's talk about first, before I jump into how do we leverage the social network, let's talk about what kind of social proximity is when we talk about LinkedIn. And there are four quadrants. There is the influence in our world, that how close we are to decision makers and stakeholders, and there is the connection. So there's the connection level and the influence of the person. So let's start that again. The connection level, how what connection do we have, and then what influence do they have, right? And so we want to talk about the most an ultimate goal of social proximity is really, do we have a connection with an influencer or a decision maker? That's the top of the pyramid there, right? That we have a decision maker and they are already a connection. That's the ultimate, right? We can go out, we can have conversations with them, we can bring value and earn the right to get a conversation. Next down is an influencer inside of the company that we want to prospect. They may not be a decision maker, but they may be able to make an internal introduction or help us navigate that company. The next one is I have a connection, a client, or a networking partner that is connected to the decision maker. That's pretty valuable. It's not quite as strong as knowing the influencer or the decision maker, but having someone in your network that can get you in front of that decision maker, pretty powerful. And then what I think is the least powerful in all of this, at the bottom of the quadrant, is I have an influencer. I have a connection that knows an influencer in that company. All right, so let's recap that. So I've articulated it in a way that's easy to understand. Most important, I have a decision maker that is a first degree connection. Next, I have an influencer inside of that company that might be able to get me to that buyer, to that decision maker. Next, I have a client or a connection that can get me to the decision maker. And last, I have a connection that can get me to an influencer. When we start to leverage these relationships and our social proximity to our buyer, we can start trust based conversations pretty quickly. So, how do we do this? I notice, well, first, I've got this first degree connection who is a prospect. Now, recognize they don't necessarily want to hear from me or be sold, and they don't necessarily want to learn about my solution. So, we have to make sure that we're earning the right with them before we even mention our services or what we sell. So, how can we do that? With our first degree connections, we need to kind of warm them up as if we saw them at a networking event. We would walk up to them, we'd make a little bit of small talk, find out a little bit about them, and naturally move into a conversation that where we might be able to help them. So on LinkedIn, what does that look like? Well, if they have content, engage on that content. Maybe you create a poll specifically for that title or industry and ask them to vote on that poll. Maybe you're creating content that you can ask them to quote on, right? So maybe you get a quote for them in a blog post. These are ways to re-engage and start the conversation with your first degree buyers that's not coming off too spammy or pitchy. All right, next down, the influencer in the company. This is an interesting one, and it really obviously depends on your relationship to that influencer in the company. Someone that can make an introduction internally. Where I often start is, and if you're in, I'm going to talk as if you're a sales rep versus an entrepreneur for a moment. If you claim them in the CRM, they are now assigned to you. So that's kind of the mentality I have around this. So, hi, Jane, whether it's a message or a call, say, your company has been assigned to me from my company, and I'm wondering if you'd be open to a quick 10 minutes where you can help me understand the landscape. Now, you can get a call, and ultimately, you'll tell them kind of what you do and what you're looking to do. And if the rapport is built and the value is, you bring that value, potentially you could get that internal introduction into that buyer. Next on the list is I have a client or a networking partner who is connected to that buyer. So client is easy, right? Mr. Client, I'm so glad we've been able to help you do X, Y, and Z. I'm not sure if you know, but the way I've grown my business over the years has been from introductions from my happy clients. I noticed that you're connected to someone on LinkedIn that I would really love to get in front of. Can I ask you, how well do you know her? A pretty simple conversation to have with an existing client. You're not asking for the introduction. You're asking, how well do you know her? And then if it leads to an introduction, fabulous. Or it could lead to permission to name drop. So if it doesn't feel like that client is open to the introduction, or it might even be a hassle, Mr. Client, thank you so much for your insights. When I reach out to her, can I mention that you're my happy client? We chatted. Yes? Fabulous. Terrific. I reach out. Jane, Mr. Client and I were chatting the other day. Your name came up in conversation. He says, hello. He's been my client for the last year and a half, and he thought it made sense for me to reach out and introduce myself. If you're open, let's connect. And they connect. Jane, thanks for the connection based on Mr. Client's recommendation. I'd be happy to jump on a quick call and share a little insights that even if we don't work together can help you around X, Y, and Z. Please let me know your preferred way of scheduling. If it happens to be via calendar link, here's mine. Simple. Now, the last one, which is going to be probably the most frequent one and not nearly as successful as the other three, but will give you more volume, is I have a connection who is connected to someone inside that company. So now it's going to be kind of a two-step process. I'm going to reach out to my connection. Can I either get an introduction or permission to name drop to the influencer? Talk to that influencer to potentially get an introduction or permission to name drop into the buyer. This can be done simply by doing a great search inside of LinkedIn of your ICP and your second degree connections. And you could get lists of hundreds, if not thousands of opportunities where you have a shared connection. So social proximity is incredibly powerful. If you're in a business development role and you are not leveraging social proximity, you're probably missing out some really huge opportunities. So this was a quick little one-person show today on leveraging LinkedIn and social proximity. If you are curious about how to leverage your social proximity, feel free to join our free library at socialsaleslink.com/library. Check out one of our events at socialsaleslink.com/events. And we are happy to help you create those lists and leverage your relationships to start conversations on a consistent basis. So when you're out and about, don't forget to make your sales